It is a tremendous honor and a special privilege to be able to participate in this holy event of a Siyum Mishnayos of young boys who divided Hashas amongst themselves. It's true, they deserve a tremendous round of applause. First and foremost, I would like to thank Rav Tzadka Shlita. I know that this is all under his auspices. And then there's a young man, Mr. Mishael Siyum. I haven't met him yet. Where is he? And I know that he is the one who made all these wonderful arrangements. I would like to begin by telling you a story that is literally life-changing. And if we hear the message of this story, we will see how we were zoicha to come here tonight. A number of years ago in Lakewood, they decided that all the elementary schools will be closed 2 days before the holiday of Paysach. Shabbat. 2 days before the holiday of Paysach. Why? So that the teachers, the Rabbis, would be able to help their wives in preparation for the holiday, and everybody's very busy, of course, before Paysach. So now it's 2 days before the holiday, and the Rebbe, the 5th grade Rebbe, comes into the kitchen and he asks his wife, "How can I help you? We have off, I'm supposed to help you." She says, "You really want to help me?" He says, "Yeah, I'll do whatever you tell me." So she says, "You know, Baruch Hashem, we have 6 kids. If you could take the 6 kids and take them on an outing for 4 hours, take them out of the house, I will be able to do everything. I'll be able to bake, I could cook, I could clean, just get the kids out of the house." And he's thinking, where's he going to take the kids for 4 hours? Then he decides that he's going to take them to Newark Airport. Newark Airport is an hour away from Lakewood. And he's going to take them on the air train. Now, when you go on the Van Wyck, you see an air train. And many big airports today have air trains. I was recently in Atlanta, that train is underground. But in Newark, it's overground. And it goes from one terminal to the other. If you land in Delta and you got to get to American, you get on that train. You land in American, you got to get to United, you go on that train. And the train, because it's overground, you can see the planes taking off and the planes landing, and it goes over the New Jersey Turnpike, so it's very exciting for the kids. So the kids and the father were on this air train, which is very sleek and very smooth, and they were having a great time. And they were on the train for 2 hours. After 2 hours, a pilot comes on to one of these trains, and the pilot always looks very nice. He's got a uniform with a cap, and he sees a father with 6 kids. So he says to the children, "Kids, where are you guys flying today?" They didn't know what to say. They weren't flying exactly. So they looked to the father. So the father says, "Actually, we're flying nowhere." He says, "Nowhere?" He says, "You see, we're Jewish, and we have a Jewish holiday, and my wife asked me if I could take the kids out of the house so that she would be able to clean and bake and cook. And so we're having a great time together, and we're on this air train." And the pilot got very serious. And he said, "Young man, I want to tell you something." He said, "I have been a pilot for 25 years. There's not an airport, a major airport in this world that I haven't landed in. But 2 years ago, I got a text from my son. And my son wrote me in the text, 'Dad, you're always so busy. You never came to any of my birthdays. You didn't even come to my graduation. And last week, it was the birthday of your first grandson, my son, and you didn't have the decency to come. Do me a favor, take my number out of your contacts.'" And he said, 2 weeks later, I got the exact same text from my daughter. He said, young man, I have traveled everywhere, but gone nowhere. You told me you're traveling nowhere, but with your kids, you're going everywhere. And that's a lesson in life. The most important thing that we as a Jewish nation have are the children right there. All the children, especially those children who learn Torah. And that's why the TOV organization can be so proud of the parents in their kehillah that have encouraged the children to spend extra time. This was not time in the yeshiva, this was extra time that they divided Shas, and like this they were able to make a Siyum Hashas. Now I want to tell you something amazing. All of us know that Rabbi Meir Shapiro was the one who presented the idea of Daf Yomi, learning a daf every day and finishing it in 7.5 years. But I want to tell you the speech that he gave when he presented it, and we will see his genius. You see, it was in the summer of August of 1923, and the Agudas Yisrael had a Knessia, a big convention, and many tzaddikim were there, and they asked Rabbi Meir Shapiro, who was very young at that time, he was in his 30s, and he got up to speak. And he said this thing. He quoted a Gemara in Yevomis, Kuf Chof Aleph Amud Aleph. And he told the story that the Gemara tells us. That Rabbi Gamliel was once on a boat with a number of his students, with a number of his Talmidim. And he was the captain of the boat. He was in charge of the boat. And all of a sudden there was a terrible storm. And Rabbi Gamliel was afraid the boat was going to break. So he turned around the boat and he took it back to shore. But as he was going on the boat with his students, he saw there was another boat out in the water. And Rabbi Akiva was on the boat. And he was so afraid. How's Rabbi Akiva going to make it? But he couldn't go out to save Rabbi Akiva because he was on this boat with his students. So the Gemara says he comes to shore, and then all of a sudden he sees Rabbi Akiva's there. And he said to Rabbi Akiva, he says, B'ni, my child, mi helcha, who got you up? How'd you get saved? It was so dangerous out there. Now listen to what the Gemara said, and we're going to see how Rabbi Meir Shapiro took these words of the Gemara and did something brilliant with them. Omali, Rabbi Gamliel said, this is what Rabbi Akiva said. Daf shel svina nizdamenli. Daf literally means a piece of board, a piece of wood. A piece of wood broke off the boat. And you know, wood floats. So I held on to the daf. And every wave that came towards me, I was holding on to the daf. I was holding on to that piece of wood. And that's how I was able to get saved. Now, the Gemara means daf is a piece of wood. It's like a raft. But Rabbi Meir Shapiro said, let's look at it deeper. You know what Rabbi Akiva said? I held on to the daf. I held on to the daf of the Gemara. And every wave that came over me, whether it was a wave of immorality, a wave of materialism or secularism, I held on to the daf. And that's what saved me. And that's what Rabbi Meir Shapiro said. If every one of us, like these boys, holds on to the daf, then we don't have to worry the outside influences. Today, Rahman al-Islam, the Rabbonim here can all tell you, there's so many children going away from Yiddishkeit. You know why? Because they're not holding on to the daf. They don't feel secure in the study of Torah. And so all the waves come over them, the waves of secularism and materialism and immorality. But if you hold on to the daf, that's what Rabbi Meir Shapiro said. Let's everybody learn a daf every day, and that's how we're going to get saved. Now I want to tell you an interesting story because many people wonder what gave Rav Meir Shapiro this idea. I mean, there were a lot of tzaddikim before him. Nobody thought about it before. What happened in his life that made him realize the importance of learning every day a daf? Listen to this story. This story was told by two great Talmidei Chachamim. One is Rabbi Avram Osband, who is the Rosh Hashiva in Riverdale, of Tells in Riverdale, and the other was Rav Meir Hirschbrook, who was a genius, and the Rav of Montreal, who was a Talmud of Rav Meir Shapiro. You see, Rav Meir Shapiro, when he was a little boy, he was only 9 years old. He was a genius. And his mother hired a tutor to teach him. And every day the tutor would come to teach this little boy Meir. And then the family decided to move to another area. And the mother, she didn't want that the boy should miss learning. So she made a call to the tutor in that city that was very far away. And she said, you know, we're coming 4 o'clock in the afternoon with the wagons and our furniture, but please be there because I want my son to learn that afternoon. For whatever reason, there was a mix-up in the signals, and the tutor didn't show up that day. And Rav Meir Shapiro's mother was waiting for the tutor to come. And now it was nighttime already, and she sat down on the stairs, and she started crying. And the little 9-year-old boy, he saw his mother crying. He said, Mama, why are you crying? Listen to what she said. She said, Meir, I want you to remember forever that a day of learning that's lost is lost forever. In other words, don't think that the next day you could catch up what you missed today, because you could have spent that time learning the next day anyway. So a day of learning that's lost is lost forever. That's why I'm crying, because your tutor didn't show up. And that's went into the neshama of Rav Meir Shapiro. And when he got older, he realized, I have to do something that people should learn every single day. And that's how he came up with the idea of the daf. Now, you know what happened? That was in August of 1923 when he proposed it. That Rosh Hashanah, the Imrei Emes, the third Ger Rebbe, he announced in the big Beis Medrash in Ger. I've been in that Beis Medrash in Poland. It's huge. And he announced, Rabbi Paysach, tonight on the first night of Rosh Hashanah, we're going to learn Daf Beis and Brachas. And they gave out Gemaras to everybody, and everybody started learning in Rosh Hashanah. And you know something? I looked up the date. You won't believe. You know what date that Rosh Hashanah was? You wouldn't believe it. 9/11. Could you imagine? 9/11 in 1923 was when they started the daf. Look how Goyim did things to hurt people on 9/11 here in America. And over there in Poland, in 9/11, that's when the Imrei Emes started the Shas. And I'll tell you an amazing thing. After Rosh Hashanah, a few days later, during the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, Rav Meir Shapiro got a letter from his sister. And his sister wrote him, my dear brother Rav Meir, I don't know why. On Rosh Hashanah at night, I had a dream of our mother. I never dreamt of our mother before. She passed away a long time ago. And I dreamt that she was wearing a crown. Oh, and when Rav Meir Shapiro got that letter, Rav Hirschbrook said, oh, now I understand why she got that dream. Because she was dreaming about the mother on the Rosh Hashanah that the Daf Yomi started. And she brought the crown of Torah back to Jews. Achzoras HaTorah Liyoshno. That's what Rabbi Avram Osman from Tells in Riverdale told me. That's why she had the dream. That's what Rav Hirschbrook said. Because she dreamt about the crown of Torah that started only because of her idea. Because she cried. Because her son missed the day of learning. And that's why I say to all the parents that are here, and to all the mothers that will watch the video on Torah anytime, just remember, Your child's learning is more important than anything else. And when you spend the time to encourage Heilige Tzaddikim, holy Tzaddikim like those boys who finished the Hashas, then we are truly going everywhere. Now I want to tell you something amazing. Over the years, ever since 2003, every summer, I've taken people to different places in Europe. Mr. Zakheim is sitting here, and we were together in Switzerland many, many years ago. We had the most memorable Shabbos ever. And the dancing that we had Shabbos night is something that changed us forever. People from all over the world were in that hotel. But I remember one year when I went to Italy, and they told me, you have to take a whole group of people and teach them about the history of Jews in Italy. And I was thinking, what's in Italy? And I found out the Mesilas Yesharim, he lived there, the Bartanura was there, the Sephorna was there. But then I took the people to the Arch of Titus. Now, if you look it up, you'll see the Arch of Titus. Titus was a Rasha. He was one of the people who destroyed the second Beis HaMikdash. And it was because of him and his terrible people that Rabbi Akiva was killed. And on that Arch of Titus, which is over 50 feet high, we were there. There's an engraving. You know what the engraving is? Of people carrying out the menorah from the Beis HaMikdash. Some say it's Jewish people that were forced to do it, and others say it was the Roman soldiers. But whatever it is, I was wondering, that arch has been there so many years, hundreds and hundreds of years. Why does Hashem let that arch stay? All the other buildings in Rome are all decimated and broken. But this arch is perfect. It's so embarrassing for the Jewish people. Over 1 million people come to visit that arch every year. And it's such a shame to see how the menorah is being carried out. And you know what I told the people when we were there? I think that the reason that Hashem has let that arch there, you know why? Because there's a message for all of us, all the Jews in the whole world. Everybody knows the famous pasuk, Ki ner mitzvah v'torah or. Every mitzvah that you do is like a candle, a shining candle. And Torah, when you learn Torah, that's like a torch. And what I once heard a brilliant thing. It's true, every mitzvah is like a candle, but you know, you could blow out a candle. You have a heavy wind, you could blow out a candle. But if you have a torch, a raging fire, Kiner mitzvah v'Torah, and Torah is like a fire. You ever see the California fires? And when the wind comes, what happens? It sweeps the fire and the fire gets stronger. And that's what Torah is. When we have all the winds, the secular winds, and it's blowing against everyone in America, especially the Jews, how are we going to fight it? We fight it not with a mitzvah. A mitzvah is not enough. Of course mitzvahs are important. But the main thing is to learn Torah every day. And that's what the boys at TOV did. They took the extra time and they lit that torch. Ki ner mitzvah v'Torah or. And I'll tell you something that I told the people. There was a correspondent that went up north in England. And he was writing about Hadrian's Wall. Hadrian was Hadrayonas. He was the one who killed Rabbi Akiva. And there was a Jewish person who saw him. And he said, you know, are you Jewish? And he said, yeah. He said, do you know anything about Judaism? He said, no, not really. He said, let me take you to a town called Gateshead. It's not far from where Hadrian's Wall is. And he took him into Rav Gurewitz, the Rosh Hashiva of Gateshead. Rav Mattisyahu Zalman told me he remembers that day when the Rosh Hashiva brought this guy in. He brought him in like with a triangular yarmulke. The correspondent put on a yarmulke, and he brought him into the Beis Medrash. And the guy never saw a Beis Medrash before. And guys were yelling and asking questions back and forth, big books, little books, on the shelves, off the shelves. And the correspondent said to the rabbi, what's going on here? I never saw anything like this. He said, I'll tell you why I brought you here. You see, you came to report on Hadrian's Wall. Today, Hadrian's Wall means nothing. Hadrian was Hadrayonis, he killed Rabbi Akiva, but the wall means nothing. People take off pieces and they use it as souvenirs. But you see these boys? They're talking about Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva still lives in their minds and their hearts. And there are hundreds of Beis Medrash all around the world where they're still talking about Rabbi Akiva. And that's why we can be so proud of these boys. I guarantee you that their grandfathers and great-grandfathers never would have imagined in the countries that they come from that their children would be able to make a Siyum Hashas. It is such a Kiddush Shem Shemayim. I have no doubt that in Shemayim, their fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers and grandmothers are looking down with pride. Look, Baruch Hashem, what can happen in Queens. It's amazing. And so I want to tell you two more things, and with that we'll close. You know, the Gemara tells us that there are different letters in the Jewish alphabet, 22 different letters, and they have different shapes. And there's a mem that's an open mem, and there's a closed mem. And the Gemara says, you know why? Because Maimar Pasuach, there's some things you're going to understand, and Maimar Sosum, some things that are closed. And you know something? What is the first letter in Shas? Anybody know? Mem. Me'emasai. That's the beginning of brachas. And what's the last letter in Shas? A closed mem. Just like the word Mayim. Mayim begins with an open mem, and Mayim ends with a closed mem. You know why? Because when you start Shas, you think, oh, I'm going to know so much. It's an open book. And then what happens when you finish Shas? You realize, oh my gosh, there's so much to learn. I don't really know it. That's why we say Hadron. Tonight, when you made the scene, you said Hadron. What does Hadron mean? Not that I finished it. Hadron means I'm coming back. Because now I'm going to learn the Torah on a higher level. And that's what these boys are going to be able to do. Now, when they learn Shas for the second time, they have the background of Shas in their brains and in their heart and their head, and they're going to be able to accomplish on a higher level. And so I just want to end with this beautiful, beautiful story. Many years ago, in the northern part of England, in the town of Gateshead, there was a little boy who went for a walk with his Rabbi in a park, just like we have here, Forest Park, a few blocks away. It was in autumn, and the leaves were gorgeous. Red leaves, brown leaves, orange leaves, and green leaves. And as they were walking, a leaf fell off a tree and landed on a park bench. And the Rebbe picked up the leaf and he said to the little child, my child, look at this leaf. This leaf thinks that it's free, that he can fly wherever he wants. But he doesn't realize that in 2-3 days he's going to wither and die. Now he thinks he's free, he can fly wherever he wants, but he doesn't realize, you know why? Because he's no longer connected to the tree, to the source. And if he's not connected to the source, he's going to wither and die. And the Rebbe said to the little boy, my child, I want you to remember something. In your life, you're going to meet all kinds of people. And some people are going to say, oh, I'm free. I could eat what I want. I could go where I want. I can watch what I want. They think they're free, but they don't realize that if they're not connected to the tree of Torah, Eitz Chaim Hila Machazikim Bo, then Chas v'Shalom, they will become irreligious Jews, and their kids will marry out of the faith. They've got to hold on to that tree just like that leaf thinks it's free, but unless it's connected to the tree of life, it can't live, it can't prosper. And you know something? That little boy grew up, and that little boy told me the story. And that little boy is somebody that most of you know his name. Hashem should bless him with a refuah shlema. That little boy is Rav Matisyahu Solomon, the Mashgiach of Lakewood. Matisyahu Chaim ben Etel, he should have a refuah shlema. And that's what he told me. That's what the Rebbe taught him. You have to hold on to the Torah. Tonight, we take such pride in these holy children and their parents and their Rebbeim who took extra time to learn Shas. Hashem should bless them. You know, I'll never forget Rabbi Schwab. There was once a fellow who came to Rav Schwab and said, Rebbe, I did Shas. So Rav Schwab asked him, you may have done Shas, but what did Shas do for you? In other words, Shas has to have an effect. You take a look at these holy children, you see the Shekhinah on their faces. Hashem should bless all of us, that we should encourage our children. We may be flying nowhere, but we're going everywhere when we have these kind of kids. Hashem should bless us, that we should have nachas and mazel. And this year, Tov Shin Pei Gimel, should be Tehei Shnas Pirsum Geula, that the Geula will become public, and next year we'll be able to have this Siyum in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for listening.
Paysach, Rabbi Paysach, Krohn, thank you very much.